There has never been a more important time to move in a vegan direction. Whether you're ready to start, restart, or re-energize your vegan or plant-based practice, this podcast is for you. I'm Michele Olander, life coach, vegan, ADHD matriarch, travel lover, and smoothie loather. And I know that it's the details that get in the way of your vegan journey. But I like to believe that the obstacle is always the way. So every week we meet here where I translate the tools of life coaching and Stoic philosophy. I bring you actionable tips, some laughs, interesting guests, and vegan ideas for everyone at any age. All to help you veg your best. Episode 300. You've been practicing. Hey kids, welcome back to Vedge Your Best. And if you're new here, welcome. You've chosen a fun one to start with. This is episode 300. 300 consecutive weekly episodes. And that sounds like it should come with cake. 300 episodes means I have shown up here every week for 300 weeks. And for years, I've said here on the podcast and in my private life, I have said there was nothing else that I've ever done for, well, the first time I said it maybe was 100 or 200, or now there's nothing else I thought that I'd ever done for 300 consecutive weeks. And every time I said it, it felt true. It felt like I was telling you the truth, but of course it isn't true. I mean, at the very least, I've brushed my teeth for 300 weeks. I've loved my family for 300 weeks. I have taken care of all kinds of things for 300 weeks. Since September of 2020, I've worried about some of the same things for 300 weeks. I have eaten plant-based meals. I've looked for vegan and cruelty-free alternatives. I've answered emails. I've taken care of people, but I've been a volunteer. I've solved problems. I've shown up in ways I would never even count unless I was trying to think of something for you. And there have also been countless things that I have not been doing with tremendous consistency also. Week after week, I have consistently not downsized our house. I have not digitized the family photos. I've not made a careful inventory of our family archives. I have really not improved my wardrobe. I have not kept my email under control, much less reached inbox zero. And if you want to know how simple I am, if you send me an email that says inbox zero in the subject line, I will definitely read it. I am obsessed with how this works for some people, but I've consistently not taken care of it. Now, I do Duolingo every day. I think I've talked about that here, over 1,400 consecutive days. Thank you very much. And I'm consistent about walking, but I also have consistently not worked with a language tutor the way I always say I will. And I've also not dialed in my strength training. I've increased my daily protein intake, but I haven't been cooking as much as I said I would. So the real truth isn't that I've never done anything else consistently. The real truth is I have had a self-image. I've had a statement about my life that I am consistently inconsistent. But I have been consistently doing many things, and I've consistently been not doing many other things. And maybe some of you can relate. We have these stories about ourselves. Stories like, I'm not disciplined. I don't follow through. I always start, but I stop. I'm too scattered. I'm not one of those people. And once we have a story like that, especially if you've practiced it for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, Well, our brains get very good at collecting all the evidence for it, all the proof that it's true. Give your brain a different assignment, though. Find proof I never follow through, and it will find unfinished notebooks and abandoned plans and unworn purchases and unused memberships, exercise programs that were started and stopped, tofu you bought with great hopes and then found in the back of the refrigerator drawer. But that same brain may not show you all the relationships and work and caregiving and appointments and bills and invisible responsibilities that you have been carrying. The fact that you're still here, still listening, still thinking about how to live in a way where you can veg your best. You've been doing a lot, and it's been consistent. And that story isn't just an error. It's also, all these stories can be very self-protective. If I tell you, listen, I'm consistently inconsistent, I'm also warning you. I'm warning you not to expect too much from me. Don't ask me to sign up for something I could volunteer for. I always say this, give me a project, give me a one-off. Tell me what day you need me to show up and do something, but please, I can't be a volunteer who shows up every Sunday or every Wednesday. Don't ask me to become one of those people with systems and routines and matching storage containers. I'm not wired that way. At least that's my story. And I want to say this gently because these stories often begin as self-protection. Maybe we learned early on it was much safer not to promise too much. One of my phrases is always under-promise and over-deliver. Maybe we disappointed someone along the way. Maybe we disappointed ourselves, and that is really painful. The author John Acuff calls these repeated phrases, these things we say all the time, he calls them soundtracks, the things we consciously and also unconsciously have playing on repeat in our minds without too much interrogating. And these stories, these soundtracks, sometimes they protect us from shame, but they can also protect us from the evidence that we might be capable of a lot more than we think. And that brings me to episode 300, which I never, ever, ever believed. I want you to know I never believed it was possible. I just kept plugging away at it. I never thought I could be vegan. I just kept plugging away at it. What have you been practicing for the last 300 weeks or 300 days or 300 hours? And I don't mean, did you build an empire? Did you build a successful podcast? Have you mastered Italian? Have you alphabetized your spices? I do try to do that. I do try to place my spices in alphabetical order because we have a lot of them. But are you the person who wakes up at 5 a.m.? No, you don't have to be. You don't have to be fulfilling somebody else's goal. But what have you practiced? Because whether we realize it or not, we are always practicing. We are always practicing something. We practice keeping the peace. We practice apologizing before we ask for what we think we need. We practice saying it's fine when it isn't. We practice telling ourselves it's too late. We practice not mentioning veganism because we don't want that look. We practice saying plant-based because maybe it doesn't cause as many conversations that we don't want to have. We practice eating things we don't even want because it's easier than making a request. But we can also practice other things. We can practice asking. We can practice returning after after dropping the ball or neglecting the goal. We can practice making one plant-based choice without deciding that means why even bother. We can practice letting ourselves be beginners. We can practice letting other people have their reactions without making their reactions our problem. Some of you may remember one of my early episodes called What Are You Practicing Not Practicing? I think that was a title. What are you practicing not practicing? And in that episode, I talked about my Instapot. I had an Instapot and I kept not using it because I just didn't feel very confident that I knew how to make it work correctly, and it meant pulling out the instructions, and I didn't want, it's a electric pressure cooker, and I do have some PTSD about a pressure cooker, an old-fashioned one that went off and scalded me with. This is a story I've never told. I was using somebody's pressure cooker, and my focus wasn't all you might hope it would be. And I scalded myself with split pea soup. And honestly, I was less worried about the scalding on me as the split pea soup that just went up onto the kitchen ceiling, which was one of those tall Victorian houses that I was renting with roommates in Somerville, Massachusetts, a long, long time ago. Anyway, I still have thoughts about that afternoon and what freaking mess that was. But to get back on track, I have this Instapot, which I don't use. I consistently don't use. You could say I make a practice of not using it. So every week I don't use it, I become more and more confident that I don't know how to use it. So we're always practicing something. We think we're waiting until we feel confident enough to begin, but often what we're doing while we're waiting is we're practicing avoidance. We're practicing hesitation. We're practicing saying, I don't know. We're practicing saying, it's just not really me. And then practiced avoidance starts to feel like, well, that's just you. It's your personality. Instead of sounding like, I haven't used the Instapot very much, it's just more like, I'm just not an Instapot person. So that's harmless enough in any given instance. When we're talking about an appliance, for sure, it's just silly. Although an unused Instapot does have its own special way of silently judging you when you open the cabinet. Ask me how I know. But we do this with bigger things and more important things and more resonant things. We start to think, I'm just not a person who can plan. I'm just not a person who can change at this age. I'm just not a person who likes uncomfortable conversations. I'm just not a person who sticks with things. Maybe I'm just not a person. I couldn't be vegan, right? Well, maybe it isn't the whole truth. Maybe we've just been practicing, not practicing. And that's what I'm trying to say today. Not practicing is also practicing. And this is where a vegan or a plant-based practice, it can really bring stuff up. It can really activate us. Because if somewhere in your mind you think, but I'm just not consistent enough to be vegan. Well, it's going to be impossible, right? Not because you don't have a good reason, not because you don't care about animals or the planet or your health, but because it sounds like something you would have to be consistent with, and that sounds like a promise you can't keep. And it sounds like a label other people can inspect or judge. One more place where you could be found wanting, where people could judge you. And that's why so many of us always are hovering near the edge, saying things like, yeah, I'm interested, or yeah, I know I'm trying, or I mostly eat plant-based, or I'm moving in that direction. Now, those phrases can be honest, useful starting places. But we just want to check in whether they're protecting us from saying, this matters to me. And then learning to practice. It's vulnerable to care, to be seen caring. It's vulnerable to say, I want my choices to reflect my concerns for ethics and the planet and worker safety and my health and my community, my own integrity. Because then what? Then we're stuck having to practice. So here's what I'd like to offer today. What if your vegan or plant-based practice is bigger than the food, bigger than the ethics, bigger than the compassion, bigger than the health and environmental benefits, because all those things are huge and they matter. But what if, in addition to all of that, this practice is one of the ways you get to blow your own mind about who you are and what you're capable of? What if this is a practice where you get to learn, I can ask, I can plan, I can return, I can handle discomfort, I can make a different choice from the people around me, I can care about something even when I'm not perfect at it, I can keep practicing. Because a vegan practice isn't the only way to express your values. It can also become a way to update and up-level your belief in yourself. And for longtime vegans that are listening here every week, you guys listen for ideas that are beyond the beginning stages of moving in a vegan direction. It's the same move for all of us. We want to update the evidence. We want to update the story we tell about ourselves. Maybe I'm not only a person who starts and stops. Maybe I'm also the person who keeps coming back. Maybe I'm not just the person who says, I'm just not good at that. Maybe I'm also a person who says, I'm not that good at it yet because I haven't been practicing that much. You know, you hear people say, well, that's just not me. I'm just not like that. And it can sound like, okay, well, who am I to argue with you, right? It can sound like self-knowledge. Sometimes it is. And we don't all have to want the same goals, routines. We don't have to want the same way of life, the same breakfast. But sometimes I'm not like that is really just a socially acceptable way of saying, you know, I just haven't practiced that much yet. I haven't practiced asking for a vegan option. I haven't practiced bringing the dish I want to eat. I haven't practiced saying what matters to me without apologizing. I haven't practiced thinking about turning my vegan advocacy into part of my career. I haven't practiced returning without turning the whole thing into some sort of courtroom drama about my character and my capabilities. Because when you say, I'm not like that, it kind of closes the door. Most people aren't going to argue with you. But when you say, you know, I haven't practiced that much yet, that opens it just a crack. That keeps your brain thinking, yeah, that's right. There hasn't been a lot of practice in that area yet. And sometimes that crack is just enough because we don't usually change, no matter what we see in movies. We don't usually change in sweeping cinematic moments. We change by collecting new evidence. We do something, we learn something, we try something, then maybe we do it again, then maybe we do it really badly, but then we go, oh, maybe if I did it a little differently, then maybe we go back to it. And if we're paying attention, we start to notice, yeah, I'm not that good at it yet. but I can do this. I'm not perfect, not every time. I do need more help. I'm a little awkward, but honestly, I can do this. So that's why at Vedge Your Best, we always talk about coming back to all or something and getting rid of that thing we all do, that all or nothing, which seems to save us from some kind of all or nothing means, yeah, I'm either good at it or, you know what, that's not me. So if you think veganism is going to require perfect consistency from you before you're even allowed to begin, you are not likely to begin. That goes for your podcast. That goes for your business. That goes for your family or your relationships. If you think it requires perfection from you before you're allowed to begin, you'll never begin. If you think you have to become a new person overnight, you're going to spend years waiting. But if you can learn to treat all sorts of things in life as a practice, then every deliberate choice counts. Not as a loophole, not as a way to dodge anything. You're not dodging anything. And so many people say, oh, is that my goal to just do it badly? No. No. But is it your goal to do it? Here's the thing about consistency. I used to think consistency meant doing it perfectly consistently in that same way with the same energy forever and ever. And if that's the definition, no wonder so many of us think we are bad at things. Because consistency isn't sameness or perfection. It's not doing things without wobbling. It's just coming back, which is what this podcast has taught me. And I hope it's some evidence for you to hold on to if there's something, whether it's a plant-based practice or a new goal or a new undertaking that you're not showing up for yet. This episode 300 is proof that a person who has a self-image of being consistently inconsistent can still build a practice. So please, you know me at this point. If you've been listening, you know me. I kept showing back up. I asked for help from Nancy. I kept my VA. I asked for help from Charlie. Thanks, Charlie. And I want that for you too. I want you to have the experience of surprising yourself, of noticing, wait a minute, maybe I can ask. Maybe I could plan some of it. Maybe I could just say no thank you. Maybe I could show up. Maybe I could care without turning every imperfect moment into some sort of proof that I should give up. So your challenge today, episode 300 challenge. What have you been practicing that you're not giving yourself credit for? 2, what have you been practicing not practicing? Where have you been consistently being inconsistent? And 3, what's one tiny thing that you want to practice on purpose this week? Not forever and not perfectly, just this week. So 300 episodes later, I don't think consistency means never wobbling, never doubting, never drifting, never needing help. I feel like I've tried to check in with you all this time, all the stuff that comes up. So if you've been telling yourself, that's just not who I am, I'm just not consistent, this week, this is the week to question it. Maybe you're a lot more consistent than you think. Maybe you have been practicing something for a very long time, and maybe now you're going to practice something else. But I want to thank you, as I do every week. Thank you for being part of my practice. Thank you. And as always, this episode and all of the episodes, take what's useful, leave what's not, and Vedge your best.
Vedge Your Best podcast production, music, and editing by Charlie Weinshank. Thanks, Charlie. Before you go, it would mean so much to me and the Vedge Your Best team if you would hit subscribe, leave us a 5-star review, or share with someone you think might be interested. Something about algorithms, it helps bump us up a little in the rankings, and that's the best way to help others find the podcast and for us to find our audience. So, until next week, make it easy and veg your best.